The tackling piece obviously is something that I think is just never ending from now until the time you're done playing ball. Because obviously I think we had 3 or 4 live periods throughout the year, like scrimmages type things, and then the rest of it's thud. And then even in your tag off stuff, which we did a little bit today, you're just constantly preaching, chasing the near hip, taking the extra step, taking the air out of it, running through, where are your eyes. So I think that's something that really throughout the whole year, but when you look at using the analogy of preseason football, in the NFL, and then you look at the first 3 or 4 games of each year, the stuff that stands out is the tackling and the takeaways, right? The tackling and the lack of ball security because, quarterbacks haven't been hit, really ball carriers haven't been hit. So the team that's tackling better from a standpoint of the individual tackles plus population to the ball, I think is a huge thing. And then in relation to your coverage piece, I've always believed, and we believe, that we're going to play as aggressive as the officials allow us to play. Honestly, I learned that a couple years ago from Dave Merritt, not from him personally, but Dawson's son Dave is the DB coach for the Chiefs, and I watched how they played our receivers in Buffalo, and they played them very aggressively, and obviously in the playoffs, they let you play. So that was about 5 or 6 years ago, and since then I've always believed in playing them aggressively, but I think you got to play to the standard of what the officiating is allowing, and our guys have been very aggressive down the field. The thing we just have to be sure of is that, you're not being aggressive down the field when the ball's in the air. I think that's something you can work on, that we will continue to work on. But, when you're an attack-oriented defense, everything you're doing is with that mindset and mentality. And when things come up like that with regards to penalties, you just try to adjust your technique, but don't change your level of aggressiveness because we're not backing off.
Hey, John, that mentality to play as aggressively as the officials allow you to play, do you have to deal with college defensive players differently than you do NFL defensive players in adjusting on the fly once you get a sense for how the game is going to go?
Only in the fact that I think the guys at the next level are just a little bit more experienced and they're older. But at the end of the day, we're not teaching them to grab and hold. We're just teaching them to contest and challenge. I think there's 2 different things. And what a tendency is that if an official calls a flag on you, that you all of a sudden want to be shadowing next to him instead of contesting and getting into him. So the refinement in the technique is to do it more so like we're coached and don't panic as you get down the field. But I think that's an important area because, again, you don't want to change how you play based on how the game's being officiated. You just want to change the technical aspect, not the tactical.
How do you feel, just generally speaking, these 2 scrimmages, how do you feel about the defense's play in the 2 scrimmages?
Yeah, I think the scrimmages have been highly contested. I think we have a very good offense that's obviously challenging us in many ways. But I think that, there's been some positives from the scrimmage. There's obviously each one, whether it's like the scrimmage a week or so ago, we gave up too many explosive plays in the scrimmage that could be corrected, a lot of it with just playing better fundamentally. But, I think the scrimmages have been great because it's iron on iron. I think we got 2 good units. I think we got a good offense and we have a good defense. When you're going ones on ones, obviously it gets highly competitive. And what also happens in these situations is we practice against our offense 15 times in the spring and we practice against them 16 times in the fall. So what happens is it becomes a high level of familiarity out there, not only with scheme, but also with personnel. And so it's good to be able to move away from that a little bit and into putting ourselves, in some fresh eyes with how we're approaching this next 3 or 4 days.
Hey, Coach, when you start to kind of put your front 7 together, what is an ideal number of front 7 players you'd like to play in a regular flow of a game, and how challenging maybe is it to kind of settle in on that number?
Yeah, I think you're trying to play into your 2 deep, I think. As long as that 2 deep is where it needs to be from a development standpoint. We're not into charity. This is a meritocracy where you're going to play based on how you've practiced and how you've performed in the meeting rooms, and then obviously how you've performed in the scrimmages. So it's a meritocracy in that way. But ideally, I think we want to be able to play at all levels into our 2 deep because we believe that as the season starts, we're preparing each day, one day at a time, but we're also trying to develop our roster as the season progresses so that we're prepared, not if we have injuries, but when. Football's a physical game, and ideally we love our starting 11 to all be available to us at the end of the year, but we all know that's not a practical way to look at things. So early in the year, we want to be developing them on the practice field, give them an opportunity to earn playing time, and then hopefully when they go out there and play, they play well, which then leads to more opportunities. So, like I said, I think you guys asked me that before. I don't really have a number per se, but I think we want to be playing into our two deep at every really position on defense. And hopefully those guys they're playing for Eck on special teams, and they get a taste of the game life on special teams as it leads into what they may be doing on defense.
How have you seen that depth come along from the start of camp to now?
Yeah, I'm encouraged by it. I think obviously each level, we've got quite a bit of depth in the secondary. I feel good about linebacker. I really feel good at all levels. But obviously we'll know in about 10 days when the real stuff starts.
Going off of that, Matt mentioned on Saturday that he noticed in the scrimmage the drop off in play from the first string group to second to third. Were you noticing similar to the stuff on defense?
Well, on defense, I think that there obviously is a level of drop off just because of experience, but I really felt like honestly in the scrimmage, our red and our white, they really got after it. They played hard, they played physical, they executed for the most part, made some plays. But obviously the biggest thing is the phrase we use, as the bullets start flying, meaning like teams start motioning and changing things. There's a level of experience that our veteran players just have seen. They've had more time on task and seen those things. So I think from an execution standpoint, it's better right now with that group. But that's our job. Coach always says it. The identity of your coach is not how you're getting your ones ready to play. It's are you getting your twos and threes ready to play, and are they able to execute at a level that's satisfactory at the game? So that's obviously a task we've got to keep working on.
In the spring, you talked about an expanded role for Deshaun Singleton. How have you seen him kind of handle that now that fall camp's over and going into?
Yeah, he does have an expanded role. I think he's doing a nice job for us. He got banged up for a couple of days. He's now fine, so he missed some time, but he's back to normal. He's going to be a player for us that we expect to play very well in whatever role we put him in, and I think that we're going to use him in a way to help our defense. So.
Is Donovan Jones safe here with Bly's injury? Did he work more accordingly?
Nothing. Any roster move we made with Donnie had nothing to do with Bly. It was like really we're trying to identify where we think the best position for all of our players are as it relates to the depth of our roster and quite frankly, getting the best 11 players on the field. I think Donnie has a bright future here right now, and right now he's playing corner, and he's got a couple other things he's doing for us, but corner is his primary position he's practicing at.
He had that big performance last year. I mean, you played him in that Boston College game. How much do you think that helped him, and how much has he carried that over?
Yeah. I think you have to ask him that because I'm not in his head, but I would assume, like anything else I've ever done in coaching, the more you play, the more confident you're going to be. So if you played in the bowl game and now you're going to play in Arrowhead Stadium against Cincinnati, that's not his first time out there. He played in Yankee Stadium, which basically you can say is a pro venue, hallowed grounds. So I would assume that anybody we got into that game, if and when they play against Cincinnati and Arrowhead, I just think that's going to help them because it just allows them to kind of say to themselves that they've been there before and done that.
Hey, you didn't have Cade Headshot coach in the spring, but what has he done to show you what he can do here in just a short amount of time to maybe put himself in that conversation to possibly earn snaps as a freshman?
Yeah, Cade plays really hard. I think that's the number one thing that stands out. It definitely stood out when you watched him in recruiting. He was a very active player that played snap to whistle. I think he's doing that for us right now, and I'm encouraged about Cade and what he might bring to our team this fall because he's carried that over as well as just getting a little bit more mature and bigger and stronger. So I would anticipate that he's going to be a factor in our front seven.
Hey, John, is that the players picked Javen Wright and Vincent Shavers among those inside linebackers to get single digits? Is that representative of what you see with the leadership at that position, those two leading the way?
Obviously, the single-digit thing here is a tremendous honor for everybody, 0 through 9, because like we have coaches have nothing to do with it. It's 100% based on the opinion and the respect that your fellow players have for you. which ultimately in football, we're trying to get these guys to play as hard as they can, as physical as they can, and execute at a high level and do it for each other. That ultimately is the kind of the bonding formula. The fact that you're doing it for your teammates, you're not out there playing for yourself. So if you then get voted as one of the 10 players to wear a single digit, I think that's just a testament of what the players think of them. And with Vincent, obviously he went from 1 to 9, which meant he was revoted into that capacity as opposed to just keeping his number 1. So I really believe that any of those players that have been voted into that position that then accepted that number, they should feel great about how their teammates think of them, and then it is a tremendous responsibility to then uphold that, because now we're looking to you, to be the ones that lead our defense or lead our team, so to speak. So I would assume that if I know this, if I was voted to get a single digit, I'd wear it, and I would wear it with pride, and I would wear it knowing that every single day I showed up in this building, I've got to lead and play with a level of effort and physicality and execution that's uncommon.
Matt said some nice things about Jameer Khan and Jalen George on Saturday. And not to get into where they fit on the depth chart, but how did you see them stay dialed in while they were injured in the spring to at least put themselves in position to help you?
Yeah, I think both of them, the number one characteristic with both of those kids is that they both have great energy. They both are very thankful to be here in this program. There's zero entitlement to them, meaning, what can you do for me? It's really about them. What can I do for the team? Obviously, they both came from programs that aren't the University of Nebraska, no disrespect to them, and I think they value what's being poured into them from a strength standpoint, from the head coaches, from the head coach, from the assistant coaches, from all of our support staff. They understand that when we say they have everything at their fingertips to be as good as they need to be, both as a man and as a player, both of those kids have that energy of, what can I do to continue to earn this, as opposed to the entitlement that sometimes gets associated with Division I athletes. And I think, therefore, they, with that energy and that kind of positive state of mind, you add to their talent and their level of kind of how hard they play, both of those guys would fall into that group that I've referred to as the players that we brought in are going to help us. And I think that as they keep developing, as they keep getting stronger, more experienced, more confident in our systems and in our building, I think both of those players, as well as those other guys we've added, are going to help us on defense. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good day. It was hot out there today.